Welcome back. Seven Rivers Racing here on KQEG is brought to you by Lost Lake Beer, the Home and American Legion, Carey Heating and Air Conditioning, in the West Salem Pharmacy. I'm Dan Dyker along with Al Losi, our guest from Star Maker Media, Dale Danielski this afternoon. And he has a nice column, as a matter of fact, that goes up into the Midwest Racing Connection. Dan Plan and company. So you want to see some good insights and some good history of the racetrack. You can find a copy of it every weekend at the La Crosse Fairgrounds Speedway, and make sure you scoop out Dale's fantastic columns. It's one of the top three things I look for every time I get the Racing Connection before I have a hamburger or two down in the pit areas. We're talking racing history in La Crosse, and Dale, our next segment here is the opening of the North La Crosse Speed Bowl.
Matter of fact, a fellow by the name of Don Denny, and he's still alive, he's in his 80s, but he, along with Friday, that got the Southside track going, same idea, thinking, well, you know, this is a way to make some money and put on events and have some fun with it. And the Northside Speed Bowl was built as a result, and that would have been 1951. And it's right where the distribution center is over there at Quick Trip, which you'd have to be awfully creative to determine there was a track there. But that's the footage you're seeing here. And, you know, of course, everything was dirt at this time. Pavement was a long way off before anybody thought to do anything that way. But that's what you're seeing.
Now, I really remember this racetrack because when I was young, before my family left the area, to get to the racetrack, you would go and pay your couple of bucks to get in, but you walked through a cemetery to get there. So I will never, ever forget this racetrack.
That's got to be pretty unique, I think, in terms of any event held. A little bit eerie, too, but that's a fact. That's the way it was laid out. And according to Donald Denny, actually, he had some land, and he says, well, we're going to build this racetrack. And I asked him, well, I said, how big are you going to make it? You know, how did you determine how you were going to do that? And he says, well, the amount of land we had, that was the size of the racetrack. And that's just what it looked like. It was like, it went to one end, and it's like, oh, we better turn the corner here. And that's how it was built.
And some very good drivers were out there. Trickle raced there. One of the more popular race cars ever in the area was the Chicken Coop, and he ran there.
Absolutely. That was one of the, and that car still exists. It was restored, but a number of different drivers did drive the Chicken Coop. It actually had a portion of like what a chicken coop would be constructed of, wire, as part of the vehicle. And yes, very famous car. A lot of different drivers drove it, and a lot of tradition there with that. 3 and 4 rider racing you're seeing on the screen right now. Some fantastic photography again of the opening back in around the 51-52 area of the North La Crosse Speed Bowl. Now, you also have some stuff from the opening in the area Southside Speedway and as well as Westby. Yeah, actually, again, these tracks were cropping up everywhere. Everybody got the idea to promote, you know, we can do it, and I mean, literally overnight, you'd have tracks that were being built, or I should say, carved out of some dirt where they had room.
Right.
A track in Westby was built shortly after these, and that's what the footage here is of. Again, short little dirt track, but a lot of guys decided, hey, we're going to try this. And surprisingly, for the time, the money was quite good. I mean, you could make $150, $200 racing. And you didn't have that much in the car.
Right. Back then, that was some top dollar.
So was that Marlon Wallback I saw there?
I don't think Marlon was racing in this area so much then, but that is one of the top drivers of the time that was racing in the 50s.
He was as popular or more popular than Dick Trickle, to put that in perspective.
Yep.
And he won about as much as Trickle
did. He did. He really was the first superstar of the era, pretty much that era. And then, of course, yes, Dick Trickle, Tom Refner, Jim Bach, all those guys followed. But you had guys by the name of W. Anderson, Cecil Henderson, Tony Bagstad's father raced at this Westby track. So, you know, those are just a couple of the names of the guys that got pretty good at this and did travel and run some of these facilities. And a number of them, and speaking of new tracks constructed, then raced at Satan's Bowl of Death. Can you believe that for a name of a racetrack? And that's what they sold that. It was chills, it was blood-curdling action. I mean, that's what they were selling. And this track was carved out of the Ray Von Ruden land just outside of Cashton. And that's the track there. It was actually almost more of a, I relate it to like a steeplechase. I mean, they had water going across it. It kind of went uphill. It was just, it was a disaster, really.
It was like Baja here in western Wisconsin.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. But dusty, of course. And, it was just, yeah. But again, racing was in its infancy and becoming popular.
And again, our guest today, Dale Danielski of Star Maker Media. He's providing all the great footage and pictures we were seeing here on the program today. And I love watching racing because as long as I've been involved in racing, I like to go, how did you ever come up with this? Well, we had to go a couple of years back, and of course, we didn't have this part. We didn't have this safety measure. Right. And as you watch some of the cars rolling on some of that video right there, back then, drivers rolled their car, they got out, they pushed it back on all fours, and they took off. You didn't have safety crews rushing to the scene and flipping cars over and making sure they were okay. They were pretty much a one-man band back then. They didn't have, Albert has, I think, 4, 5, 6 in his crew along with yourself.
Yes.
These were guys that were driving the cars to the track or maybe trailering them themselves. And then they were the one-man pit crew all the way through. Now, if you look at the photo right there, it looks like the evolution of an open-wheel car. Around the Plymouth area, that could have been, looking at the body, almost a super modified without the wing, and the evolution of the sprint car. And we're going to talk more about that. Dale's going to rejoin us. We've got the all-new La Crosse Fairgrounds Speedway 1957 version coming up on the show. Dan Dyker, Al Losi, and Dale's going to be back with us again with more highlights and more history on the Seven Rivers Racing Show here on KQEG.